Welcome to an overview of the TOEIC TOEFL IBT Independent Writing Tasks, Part 2. In Part 2 of our series, we will review the previous activity in Part 1, in which we were practicing identifying the essay type. Then we will discuss in a little more detail how to actually begin planning a response and getting us to think more about the topic that we are going to write about. We'll then conclude Part 2 by doing a little activity, helping us look especially at the defense essay with an activity we like to call pros and cons. So, identifying the topic. As we mentioned before, it is important to be able to look at the topic and quickly identify the type of essay you'll need to write. This means we have to look at the signal words in the essay prompt. Remember, signal words are those words that tell us in a very quick way what kind of essay we're looking at. And remember, there are three different types of essays. In the defense or argumentative essay, those signal words might be words such as agree or disagree, or which do you prefer. In the second type, the comparison essay, you might see words that say compare, such as compare the advantages, or discuss, as in discuss these views. The third type is the explanatory essay, and again you might see words such as what is your opinion, or what do you think. So why are these words so important? Well, remember, in order to write a good response to the topic, you first must be able to identify what the requirements will be. Of course, this is only a starting point. Identifying the topic is one thing, but the next thing we need to focus on is whether or not we can understand the topic completely. And this becomes kind of difficult for students. So in understanding the topic, we need to be able to think more about it, and in fact, thinking more deeply in order to give a better response. Now you might think, well, there's not a lot of time to do that on the test. So, in order for us to do this, we have to kind of get more familiar with the idea, get more experience. Because remember, preparing for a test, which is what we're doing here, is different from actually taking it. So, how can we think more about a topic? Well, I find that one way to improve our ability is to think about a topic from different perspectives, to look at different points of view. Now, even though these are topics that we can usually relate to, remember they're about everyday kinds of things, or things that we perhaps can think about or actually have happen, we don't often spend a lot of time in our everyday lives thinking about them. So, one way to think about these topics and examine them more deeply is to actually start looking at the arguments for one particular point of view and the arguments against that particular point of view. I believe this is perhaps one of the most effective ways when thinking about the defense essay. So, now it's time to play another game. It's a little game I like to call Pros and Cons. So, what are the rules? Well, in this activity, you're going to see several test topics from the TOEIC and TOEFL. The goal is to see if you can correctly identify the arguments given to you as either pro, con, or not related. Once again, we will begin with an example before we move on to the game. So, let's take a look at this topic. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Face-to-face communication is better than other types of communication, such as letters, email, or telephone calls. Use specific reasons and details to support your answer. So on one side, we will have the pro argument, and in this case, pro would mean that we favor face-to-face communication. On the right side, we will have the con argument, such as that other types are better. So let's begin. Sometimes we just want to give a quick message without a long conversation. So technology helps facilitate that. So is that pro, con, or is this not related to the topic? Well, in this case, it's actually referring to the con argument, because we're saying that technology would be a better way to communicate rather than face-to-face. Okay, let's try another one. If you make a mistake, it is easier to correct by using a clarifying or corrective statement. This one probably belongs more to the pro argument. So, for example, if you're talking to somebody, you could easily make a correction by giving a statement or clarify. That's not so easy to do when you're writing a letter, sending an email, or perhaps even doing that on the telephone. Okay, here's another one. You can see the person's reactions when you communicate, and you can respond accordingly. This one is pretty easy to see as a pro argument. Again, part of the idea of face-to-face communication is the fact that we can see someone's responses. Those reactions can help us adjust or respond so that we can continue our particular line of discussion. Here's another one. Email is an electronic form of communication and is very helpful. Is it pro, con, or not related? Well, in this case, it's not related. Even though it is a helpful piece of information, it doesn't actually belong to either argument. It doesn't tell us that email is better or worse. It just barely explains what email is. One more. It's often difficult to get together in person, so email, texting, telephone is easier to communicate thanks to today's technology. Well, in this case, as you can see, it would be a con argument. Because the idea here is that these other forms of communication, especially those that are more instant, can be a lot more convenient rather than actually trying to get together with someone. It's now your turn to play pros and cons. Click on the link at the bottom of the page to play. When you are finished, go on to the final video in this particular part of the series, Part 3. Good luck!